Welcome to Mississippi State Live here on the Voice of College Football. Andrew Miller joined by Christian Ballard here on a Monday evening. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Mississippi State's loss to Texas, look ahead to the Dogs versus Arkansas, maybe get into a few other topics here. If you could, leave us a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are not already. Turn that notification bell on so you do know when we do go live. I have a hair. There we go. A mustache hair. That was just sitting in my mouth, so that's great. I ruined my intro there. Share the channel, share the stream, all that fun stuff. We are up at 100 subscribers now, which is a lot of fun, a lot of really cool. Let's get to 150. Let's get to 200. Let's get to a gazillion. That's obviously the idea here. It was one of the streams of all time in the post game. Angry Andrew showed up, which hasn't been there in yet many situations. Have I recovered from Saturday yet? Not really. I've been pretty PO'd much of the day. Listening to any sort of recaps on the game from other state podcasters, from other national sources, having to see Josh Pate putting that out there all day to troll Brandon Walker, just that's great. Which I know there's the Barstool thing. It's awesome to have a Mississippi State person there, and Brandon's awesome. And Brandon is right, because I know he clapped back at some people who were talking about, it's not a good thing that we have him there because of stuff like this. Like, if we had won, that would have been awesome spotlight for Mississippi State with the Barstool. There is the other side of the coin, though, is because it's Barstool. God, if you lose, they are going to trash you to the end of time if you've got someone there who cheers for that team. And I was not enjoying every other tweet being something making fun of Mississippi State for losing to Texas. But, it is what it is. Frankly, we would have gotten made fun of regardless, because that was terrible. I felt like I was trying to be your therapist. Yeah, a little bit. Look, I stand by most of my thoughts. I will say my tweet quoting the Brandon Marcello thing, which was just total nihilism. Like, yeah, that was extreme, but in the moment that felt totally fair for what this team has been. The whole, 7-1 versus 3-5, what the team should be. At this point, I feel like they're a team that finds ways to lose games. I'm not going to take a step back on that. And no, I'm not going to predict them to win a game until I see them be able to do it. Can they win in Arkansas? Sure. Am I going to trust them to? God, no. Yeah, it's just this is a frustrating time to be a Mississippi State fan. We'll, I guess, get into some of that here in just a sec. Christian, obviously, you were not on Saturday night, so any thoughts, feelings, whatever from the game?
I mean, how did this team end up beating Arizona State in week 2 and just having a good start? And now they're just, as soon as SEC play hits, it falls apart. 45-38. We fall shy to Texas. It was a close game. It's not like they came in and beat the brakes off of us, but to go to overtime, to play it close, thought the offense looked pretty good. The defense, horrific. Of course, you give credit to Sarkisian. He's an offensive mind at Texas and what he's got going with Arch and everything. But I think what kind of pisses me off a little bit with it is like, if I'm Mississippi State, knowing that Texas has not lived up to what they should be, and knowing that Arch is not living up to what he was made out to be coming out of high school, living up to the Manning name, at least for this season, I mean, I would be frustrated about this loss, man, because it's like, well, we lost to a good program. Yeah, you lost to a good program on a year where they're down, at least in terms of how they play, and you got out coached. That's fair.
Yeah, look, I don't think anybody's not frustrated with the loss. I don't think there's anyone looking at it because it's Texas. Question for you from Right Yard Services: as an outsider, do you think we will win at least one more game this season?
I mean, I think there's got to be another win somewhere. It's possible. It's also possible that they And I'd hate to say it. I mean, Arkansas, Georgia, Missouri, and Ole Miss could. If you don't beat Arkansas, you're gonna lose out because it's not going to get any easier. I think. Can you win one more game? Sure. It's this week at Arkansas. I don't even care if it's close this week, dude. You got to win one more. You win two more, you're going to a bowl. But Georgia's really good. Missouri's really good. And Ole Miss is really good. Those are three back-to-back-to-back ranked teams that you're going to have to face down the stretch after this Arkansas game this week. That I'm just not seeing much momentum for the Dogs, the Mississippi State Dogs. I don't know it. I guess you could get it back, but it's. I mean, would you bet anything on it?
Logically, it makes plenty of sense to predict Mississippi State to win at least one game. I'm not even talking about going to a bowl, finding a win, because you still play an Arkansas team that is not very good, even though the offense is good. That's an incredibly beatable team. Georgia, I do think is very good, but it's in Starkville. They've been up and down all year, which I don't think the atmosphere in Starkville is going to be great at this point, but still, you get that game at home. Missouri, what do they look like without Bribula? And have they been kind of figured out a little bit here? Don't know. And then the Egg Bowl is the Egg Bowl. That game typically is always going to be close. And if it's close, theoretically, you have a shot. Logically, you would look at Mississippi State in these one-score games and say it's going to flip at some point. So purely from a logic, from a odd standpoint, sure, States will probably find a win. Me saying they're not going to find a win is very much emotional, but it's one of these things. I don't know if I've talked about this I think I talked about this on this show one time before while doing the picks, that I tend to be someone that when I make predictions, I have to do it based on as much as possible, unless I truly don't have any kind of an idea and I'm just like, all right, I just sort of think this, or I don't have anything to back it up, but I just have a feeling, I have a vibe, whatever. I typically pick games based on whatever analysis or data I can look to. Like, okay, what's a matchup? Like, what can I point to that says why this team should prevail in this game? Taking the human element out of it entirely, which in the human element is that sometimes in college football, especially, stuff just happens. Teams just win games for whatever reason. And my brain doesn't like me to pick games that way. I don't like, because I feel like I'm just putting something out there. Like, I would rather have process behind whatever I'm predicting. And process wise, I would say Mississippi State would find a win. Now, I don't know what the sync game would be, but I would say they would be able to find one. I am, in this case, when I say they're not winning, it's just like the vibe is not good. And I just have a hard time feeling. I know this team has come back from rough losses before. And, the one thing you can give them credit for under Lebby is not quitting. I do think this is different. This game and the way it played out going on the road immediately afterwards feels really tricky. And look, I think I said this in the post game. It would have been tricky had they won. If you win the game, this is like a key letdown spot. Now is it like it's a letdown because your guys are not going to get up for it? I don't know. And then the other games, I don't know what the matchup would be that I could find State to be able to get one. I can look at it logically, though, and say that they would be able to find one, however. But emotionally, it is hard to trust this team to not make a play that screws it up. I think they'll be competitive in most of these games. It wouldn't shock me if every single game the rest of the season is a one-score game. Can you find a way? Bottom line is we're good enough to be in every game, but are 1-3 in games decided at the buzzer. Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And, Chris, you talked about earlier, how did they beat Arizona State? A blitzer got tripped up. That's the answer. Like, State scores a touchdown because Arizona State sent a blitz and they left their receivers one-on-one and our guys got deep. But that blitz gets home if not for a fact that the free rusher doesn't trip. Like, they had a guy who would have sacked Blake Shapen on that play. He trips. And it gives Shapen enough time to get the throw off. If he doesn't trip, it's a sack and it's probably game over. So that's
basically, I mean, you look at it. I mean, State has obviously had their fair share of luck at least in that
I
game.
wouldn't
But
say fair share. I would say they got lucky on a singular play this season.
that's true. Yeah. But I mean, I don't even know if I want to say they've had luck, period, but they just have things go their way. And they, you see some wins here or there that they've had that I mean, they were lesser competition, whatever. So yeah, I don't even know, man. They gotta get an SEC victory. They have to. I don't even care if they get lucky to get an SEC victory or if they just straight up dominate. I mean, it would be nice if they could dominate, especially a game like Arkansas this week. But I don't know, man. Just I feel like the chips have to fall in their favor, is what I'm trying to get at.
No, that's fair. Yeah, dominating would be nice, but at the same time, I think if it's going to happen, they're going to have to find a way to grind one out. I don't see this team managing to completely put opponent away, or maybe that's what they're going to have to do. Maybe this is a team that they can't leave the margins close. They have to be able to win by a lot in order to find a way to get a win. That's what this team is certainly going to have to figure out, which that leads into the question of how does Mississippi State learn how to win? That's obviously a big debate right now. Is we talk about teams have to learn how to win, and I felt like I pushed back against a lot of that on Saturday night because I feel like when we talk about learning how to win, blowing a 17-point lead really isn't a part of the calculus there. But I guess it all does come together. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, learning how to win, it's not getting your own way and capitalize. Like you can talk about its belief and having belief and understanding that even when things get tough, you can find a way. I would think this team should be able to have that. They did it against Arizona State. Like that's the baffling thing to me. It can't be a belief thing, and I don't think it's a belief thing because this team had the game against Arizona State where they were dominating, with total control, and watched it slip entirely away. And that is a game where I'll be fair. Like it wasn't. Yes, it's one play that lucked out, but they also made a key play to win that game defensively the drive before with Nick Mitchell making a stop to force a field goal where if he doesn't make that play, Arizona State scores a touchdown, and then we're talking about this game potentially going to overtime. Instead, he makes a stop. Arizona State has to kick. State's able to win with the touchdown, and they do. Like that was a game where with the game on the line, State did step up and make it happen. And even with the blitzer, like, hey, Blake Shapen had to make a throw. Blake Shapen made a throw. And we've seen him miss wide open throws all season. He put that one on the money. You got a little bit lucky, but you still made the play. So I don't think it's a case of like a belief that they can't do it and that when things get tense, they're just, oh man. And maybe it's different because it's an SEC game. Maybe the SEC streak is wearing on them and they've got to have that belief. But I would think they have the belief. It's all about executing. It's execution early, throughout, and at the end of a game. We talked a lot about with Florida how as much focus as can be put on the interception at the end of that game. The fact is, if Mississippi State executes offensively early in that game, they win by a lot. You had chances to score touchdowns in that game. Wide open receivers downfield. You didn't hit them. And if you make those throws, you get up big on the road and that thing's not close, you run away with it. I think, the Tennessee game and some of the turnovers that you had and some of those mistakes that caught up and hurt you in that one. And then we look at the Texas game, and it feels like State overall for much of the game played its best game we've seen, but they got off to a slow start against Texas too and had some key errors that came back to bite them in that one. Like early in that game, like with the fourth down stuff, and just not executing all that cleanly offensively, a couple drop passes. Like they got off to a rough start in that game before they got rolling offensively. And it's like, if you execute on those plays, do you have another touchdown on the board? And Texas is not able to come back. But then obviously we see the stuff at the end of the game as well, where, you have the miscues that you do late, notably against Florida and against Texas with the interception, with the stupid penalty, and then the punt return stuff against Texas. Like those plays, it's how do you get out of your way and stop making mistakes? And I've talked about it. It does fall back on coaching. If you are continually having problems as a program, making mistakes making plays to get in your own way, and that cost you games. Mississippi State is not a good enough team to get away with making mistakes. I've said this since the Tennessee game. I think we said it early in the season too, even when they were not playing full games and they were taking losses. But against Tennessee, State had an opportunity in that game because Tennessee made mistakes. State missed out on their opportunity in that game because they also made mistakes. They could not get away with their miscues. Against Florida, State had an opportunity because of some mistakes that Florida made. Mississippi State was not able to win because of mistakes that Mississippi State made. And I'll say it again for Texas. Mississippi State was dominating that game because of mistakes Texas made. Now, a lot of the State was also just kind of dominating, but still. Texas was able to win the game, though, because Mississippi State was not able to win because Mississippi State made mistakes. This team is not good enough to afford to get in their own way. They have to play clean ball, and that's been an issue. But I don't know how you go about fixing that.
I don't know how you fix it either. We're 4 games into SEC play, going on 5 this week with Arkansas. Especially like Saturday this week with Texas and then the Tennessee game. You took it to overtime. I have no problem with that. But you got to be able to capitalize it and find ways to close. You just have to. That's one thing. Like, you're I don't know, man. Like, you're literally like 3 games away from being 8-1, 7-1, something like that. Like, you're
It
a
would be
couple plays
7-1,
away.
but
7-1. You're like 3 plays away from that, dude. I mean, you talk about that for Mississippi State, a team that went 2-10 last year. That's pretty incredible to see. But at the same time, it's also kind of a thorn in the side that, like, you haven't been able to figure it out.
yeah, but and this is the point that I made on social media is ultimately, like, as much as we can say they're a few plays away from being 7-1, and I won't even do the whole 3-5 thing. Like, if we want to give them the Arizona State game, we'll give it to them. Like, you did make the plays. This team's nature, though, has been getting in their own way. They've gotten in their own way every single game this season. Mississippi State has not played Alcorn State excluded. That game does not count. Every game they have played against an FBS opponent, they have had a stretch of football where they were not good. They did not have good first halves against Southern Miss and Northern Illinois. They did not have a good second half against Arizona State. Tennessee, it's not so much a bad half because that was sort of a back and forth game throughout. So maybe that's not a great example. But there were miscues. There were too many miscues along the way. You did not play a clean football game.
Right.
Texas A&M, offensively, it was just bad the entire game. And that's also a bit of an outlier because some of the injuries that you had there. But that was just a rough all the way around game. And also A&M is just really freaking good. Florida, you played poorly for about half the game.
Against a bad team too. Florida's really not that good.
They started hot. They went right down the field and scored. And then the offense fell apart and did not find anything until the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And it was too little too late. Not technically, because technically you were in position to win the game, but you got in your own way. And then against Texas, like, the fourth quarter was bad. And the first 10, 15 minutes of the game were not great either. This team, it's like both. They haven't played a complete game in terms of executing throughout. They have not played a complete game in terms of not making mistakes. And as long as those issues continue, they're going to continue putting themselves in position to be able to lose games. And I don't know how you fix the lack of execution in key moments. And what does Jeff Lebby have to do to get that in line? Now, the big question with Lebby right now that people are bringing up is play calling. Does he need to not be a play caller anymore? And I think the popular opinion right now on social media is that you have to give it up. There's just this idea a lot of people have. There's been a big discussion with Steve Sarkisian at Texas that in this era of the sport, you cannot be a play caller and be a head coach at the same time and be super effective.
Mm-hmm.
I think I push back against that. I think that comes up a lot at programs where the recruiting and roster side of it is such a big key piece that for in terms of competing for championships, that staying up to staying on top of like keep making sure your offense is still cutting edge, making sure your offense is something that is working at the highest level, also being able to game plan throughout the week while also still making sure you're recruiting on the other side and managing a roster. Is that something you can still do? And the roster management thing, it even goes beyond the recruiting part, because when you have so many guys on a team that are not players you necessarily recruited out of high school, guys you've not had long relationships with, how are you making sure week by week that they are buying into your culture and making sure that those guys are fitting what you need them to do? And many people believe it's hard to do that now and still be a play caller. I kind of disagree. The recruiting side of it, and I know people can point at Mississippi State's recruiting right now and say, well, clearly that's a problem. I don't think Mississippi State's recruiting is a problem because of not having guys who can recruit. I actually think Jeff Lebby's a coach who can recruit pretty well. I think some of the guys on the staff can recruit pretty well. I think the recruits are not wanting to come to Mississippi State right now because the product in the field is not something those guys want to be a part of. Like, I think it's just hard to sell Mississippi State to a lot of players right now. So I don't think that factors in. Now, the game management side and the program management side, that's a more interesting discussion. From a game management standpoint, and we have Trey Clark stepping in, he absolutely needs to be the play caller. That's his best attribute. And I generally agree.
Yeah.
From a game management standpoint, when we look at like what have been Jeff Lebby's issues as a play caller to this point, I don't know if it's things you put on him because it's like, well, that was him being a head coach. The calls he has made that fans have had an issue with have been overly aggressive calls in terms of going for fourth downs fans didn't think he should go for. Throwing the football in situations where you need to be running the football. Or fans feel you need to be running the football. Still playing with tempo at times where maybe you need to slow the clock down. Those are offensive coordinator type decisions. Those aren't really head coach type decisions. And maybe you could say, well, he's still trying to operate as an OC when he needs to be operating as a head coach and understand that he can't do those things. I don't know if his mind – I don't know if him taking away play calling would make him not think that way. I feel like Lebby – like he is still operating the way Jeff Lebby would operate if he was just a play caller. Mm-hmm. So unless you – I guess the question is there, is he a guy that needs someone to kind of rein him in? Maybe that's a separate discussion. But I don't think giving up play call – like I have a hard time seeing Jeff Lebby giving up play calling and then telling his OC not to go for those fourth downs or not to keep throwing the ball here or not to keep foot on the gas here. Like, I think those are decisions Jeff Lebby's making because that's what Jeff Lebby, like, that's how he wants to run his offense. And I don't think him becoming a head coach, clearly that's not stopped it, but I don't think him giving up the play calling would take that away. Now, again, whether or not that's an issue is a separate discussion. But to me, the play calling issues have not so much been a product of, like, he's not thinking straight because he's focusing on being a head coach. Which then you could argue, okay, well, then how does that impact the rest of his team? And which I'll say something else on that to be fair. The other part is, is the offense lacking from a design standpoint? I'll be honest, I've not been blown away with what State's done schematically this year. I think Lebby has been a guy that in the past you've seen him be a lot more innovative. So maybe you do wonder, okay, is him as a head coach right now, is that something where they've lacked some innovation because he's not able to put the same work into that stuff as possible? That's a real question, and that's more of a fair question for me. But I just have a hard time thinking Jeff Lebby would not be doing these things just because he's the head coach. Like, the fact that there's stuff like he was doing at Oklahoma as a play caller, doing at Ole Miss as a play caller, and he's not doing it now, it's like, okay, well, how much of that is like him looking at the players he has and just working with the personnel and saying, these guys, this is what they do best, and we're going to stick with that. Like, I don't think he's forgotten certain plays and isn't running them because he's a head coach. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe he's simplified things down because he thinks there's too much on his plate. I don't think that's most likely. I think it's most likely that if he's moved away from certain play calling things, it's because, hey, like this team, I think doing X, Y, and Z is best for them, and we're going to ignore the ABCs of it. I could be wrong there. Now, the game management side is another discussion because, and we've seen the game management from his aggressiveness on offense, and at times has come back to bite State. But is there any world where we think him being too focused on offense, being too offensive driven, that he is not like the team having execution issues? Is that something that's happening because Levy's calling plays? I don't think so. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But it's for some reason like these mental errors, these mental lapses. Is that something where Levy doesn't have his finger on the pulse of the team and guys are not locked in the way they need to be locked in for the program because all of his focus is on the offense? I have a hard time seeing that being the case. And I think it's also far too early in Levy's tenure to say you give up the play calling. I just think, to me, I don't think we have enough evidence of like these things are not working at this point to say he's got to scrap it this quickly. I think as much as I am frustrated with where the team is at right now, where the program is at, I don't think Levy being the play caller is what the issue is.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know how I want to put this, but I would agree with you. Like, it's not him being the play caller that's the issue. And immediately, like, what comes to my mind when I think head coach and play caller at the same time, I go back to those couple years at Auburn with Gus Malzahn. He did it in a really good way. He had years where he didn't really have a hand in the offense, and it blew up in his face. And then you also had the seasons where he was able to beat Alabama and Georgia in the same year, or at least get one of them, and he was calling plays, and it was fine. I think with Jeff Levy, I feel like it's the opposite. I'm not saying he shouldn't have a hand in the offense. I'm not saying he shouldn't call plays at all. But I think he's trying to be Superman a little bit too much, with Mississippi State's offense. And, like you said, just tone it back a little bit, just a little bit. If there's, moments where you got to step in as the head coach and it's not working and you feel like you need to get it going for your team, sure, call the play. Maybe you need a big play on, like, I don't know, 2nd and 15, something like that, right? You had a bad play on 1st and 10. Just throwing out examples, of course, but there's I feel like Jeff Levy has won over the locker room and stuff in a way, but at the same time, it's not producing on the field like it should. Would you agree with that?
I mean, look, I think the team plays hard for him. Like, clearly
Right.
I don't think it's not an effort issue, and I don't think there's a culture issue. I just think for whatever reason they are having a hard time snapping mental errors coming back to bite them.
Yeah.
And look, there's been penalty things that have happened, but is that a product of Jeff Levy calling plays? I have a hard time seeing it. And also, like, that's one of those where it's been a recurring theme and it's been an issue. And like this last game against Texas, a penalty is why you lost the game ultimately, because if you don't commit a roughing the passer, like, that is something that, you take the ball over in Texas territory and you go and you probably score. And at that point, the game is completely over. Especially because Texas is not scoring on that drive, and they ultimately, because of the roughing the passer, were able to go get a touchdown. I I have a hard time thinking Levy calling plays is contributing to certain players on the roster committing penalties over and over again. Like, I don't know what he would need to be doing to get those guys locked in to not make those mistakes. And then there's the other point from the play calling standpoint is like how many times they've had a play that's there that State hasn't connected on. And it's like, if you hit that, it's a big deal. And it's like, well, he drew up the play. It was there. They just didn't connect. So, like, that's another thing. It's like, how can we really say it's a play calling thing when the opportunities are there for big plays and State misses on them, which that went back to last year? Is this really just a case of like the guys, you're going to have to get better players in here who are able to execute at a higher level? I don't know. I've probably talked around this a few different times where you could go one way or the other, but I don't see how Levy calling plays is what's hurting this team right now. Unless the mindset is his way of calling plays is hurting the team. That's to me like is a mentality thing with Levy where, and I was saying this earlier, clearly that mentality has not gone away with him being a head coach. So is that suddenly going to change just because he brings in an OC? If somebody else is doing it, is he going to be more willing to say, you don't need to be doing X, Y, and Z. Let's be more conservative here. Let's punt it away. Let's run it, whatever. I feel like that's just the mentality that he has as a coach. And I also know like we tend to like coaches who are pretty aggressive and want to go and make the plays. It just hasn't worked out for State this year. So I don't know. I don't think the aggression and I don't think the issues stem from him not being able to call plays anymore. If I had to put it blunt, if we get into next year and it's still a lot of the same and we're not getting certain things that I think would be effective, maybe that's a different discussion. We'll talk about Arkansas here now. This is a big game for Mississippi State. Every game has been a big game, but Christian kind of said it earlier. If you don't win this one, that's where it really becomes, all right, is it just not going to happen? This is one where the opponent should be one you can go and take advantage of. Because Arkansas as a team has a massive flaw. Now, that said, Arkansas as a team does have something that they are very good at, and that is offensively, they have been outstanding this year. Right now in the SEC, they are second in total offense behind Tennessee, averaging about 491 yards per game. They are first in yards per play offense at over 7.5 yards per play. From a scoring offense standpoint, they are – where are they at? Fifth in the league at 35.5 points per game. I am curious against Power 5 competition. They're still third. Even against Power 5 teams, they're third in the SEC at 33 points a game. So this has just been an all-around great offense. They've been very productive against every single opponent that they've faced this year. I mean, look, against Ole Miss, 35 points. And a loss to Memphis scored 31, and that was not the best day for them. Notre Dame really shut them down. I think they had some yards in that game, but they only scored 13. 31 points in a loss to Tennessee, 42 points in a loss to Texas A&M, 24 points on Auburn, and could have had more. They turned the ball over 4 times against Auburn. So really, if you turn it over 4 times, you probably should have put more points on the board. They've been really effective. Bobby Petrino has that thing operating at a high level. Even though he is a terrible person and shouldn't be the football coach in Fayetteville, although if he is, it'd be very funny because it would be certain to crash and burn. He's been successful when it comes to calling plays, and it starts at quarterback. Taylor Green has overall been really, really good for the Hogs this year. He's completing more than 62% of his passes, 9 yards per attempt, 272 yards a game, 18 touchdowns, just 8 interceptions on the year, which say just 8. 8 is a lot of interceptions. Turnovers have been a bit of a problem for him. He's run for over 75 rushing yards a game, 603 on the season at a 6.7 average, 5 rushing touchdowns. He has just had some really impressive days on the year. He put up 420 yards of offense at Ole Miss, had over 300 yards against Tennessee, 341 yards against Texas A&M. It's been a huge year for him. He's got a powerful arm. He's improved a lot as a drop back passer. So it's not just run, play action shot down the field. It's not just throwing quick little check downs and screen passes. It's him dropping back, reading across the field, and finding the open man. He's done a great job of that. Turnovers have been, as I kind of alluded to, the one thing. If you look at Taylor on the year, He throws 3 picks against Auburn. He threw 2 picks against Memphis. In a win, 2 picks against Arkansas State, and I know he's had some fumbles mixed in there as well. So some mistakes here or there. He does have days where the completion percentage gets low. He had a load against Notre Dame and against Memphis. Did not complete passes at a high rate. So look, he does have days where it can get away from him. And if you're State, that's what you have to be banking on here is that you're able to force him into some mistakes. But overall, Taylen Green has been really dangerous, and it's probably going to be the quarterbacks Mississippi State faced this year. I mean, I would say he's probably been the most impressive quarterback the Bulldogs have seen.
Yeah, Taylen Green's he's a beast, man. He does have 17 sacks on the year. He does have 8 picks. But when he gets going, he gets going. Um, he already has 18 touchdowns. He's got over 2,000 yards. I feel like statistically Arkansas has a good offense with Taylen Green. They don't have the best at scoring offense, and I don't. I think it's obvious why. It's just a coaching thing, obviously, but like they got talent, they got good leadership, and they have a lot of stuff that can go in their favor. And I think even going forward with Coach Bobby Petrino, I think that it's probably going to turn around. I don't know how much, I don't know how fast, but I feel like there's going to be some stuff that's going to work in their favor. The question is, do they get it done this week against us? And ultimately, I think all eyes for Mississippi State have to be on how does the defense match up.
Yeah, this game will very much come down to how well State's defense can play. And look, Green has been a really, really good player, but it's not just him. Like they've got good weapons on that team as well. I think it's so funny coming into the year. There were a lot of questions about this receiving core. Like, are these guys who are able to play? I thought O'Mega Blake was a good pickup for them, and he's had a great season. He's at 48 catches for 643 yards, 4 touchdowns, and it's not like he's just been a merchant for against non-conference teams. He's putting up production every single week. Rohan Jones at tight end is averaging 34 yards of reception. He has 12 catches for 408 yards, 3 touchdowns. He only gets 1.5 catches a game, but buddy, they find a way to scheme him wide open, and it tends to be a big play. Raylan Sharp has been a good player for them out of the slot, 25 catches for 344, 3 touchdowns. CJ Brown is an emergent receiver for them, 21 for 236, 3 touchdowns. And that's kind of their main rotation in the receiving core. Those guys have all performed really, really well for them. So they've got weapons. They have multiple weapons that they can get to. Even though O'Mega Blake is the main target, Green is capable of getting the ball to other receivers. And then you look at the run game. I already mentioned Green is obviously a huge part of it. Mike Washington has been a beast. 712 yards in the season with 5 touchdowns, 6.6 a carry, 89 yards a game. He's been fantastic. Braylon Russell, who State fans remember for running all over them a season ago, he's averaging over 5.5 a carry with 4 touchdowns. So he's been a good factor as a number 2 back. This team runs the football for over 200 yards a game and over 6 yards a carry. Within the SEC, I'm very curious from a rushing offense standpoint. From a yards per game, they're second in the league. But in terms of yards per rush, Vanderbilt's actually first, but they're second in the league in terms of yards per rush at 6.1. So, it's not just that they run the football well and can run it a lot. They tend to pick up big chunks on the ground. And for Mississippi State, run defense has been a little bit shaky. It was pretty good against Texas. They handled the Texas run offense pretty well, but Texas is not a team that's built to run the football. This is a big, big test for State defensively in terms of trying to limit the Arkansas run game. Because, look, if the Hogs are able to get the run game going, it might be a long day for State defensively.
Yeah, Arkansas, they definitely have some things that they can take advantage of on offense. You mentioned the run game a little bit there. Their lead rusher, 108 carries, 5 touchdowns, 712 yards for what's his name, Mike Washington. Uh, that this is a team that I think is capable of slowing down the run defense. But I also think the other side of the coin is that Mississippi State's run defense, even though it hasn't been its best, it's also not been its worst. Worst? Worse? I don't know. But I would say it's going to be a challenge for State's defense, but at the same time, it shouldn't be too much to handle, I don't think.
Yeah, and look, I will say, if you're State, can you generate pressure? That'll be a big thing to look for.
Right.
You mentioned 17 sacks given up on the season. Now, 12 of those happened in 3 games. Notre Dame, Tennessee, Texas A&M, that 3-game stretch, it was 4 sacks a game allowed across those 3 games. Other than that, 5 games given up in the remaining 5. So, 1 sack a game. Basically, they faced 3 teams that have a good pass rush, and those 3 teams were able to give them a lot of problems. Mississippi State doesn't have a good pass rush. So it's like, how does that really balance out? That'll be a big question. I mean, if you can get pressure again, Green is a guy that can make some mistakes. I think you also have to trust State's secondary to try to create some confusion. If you can drop guys back in coverage and force him to throw the football to maybe where he's expecting someone to not be, that's sort of going to be your best hope. But if you let them, that's getting them into passing situations. They're great on third down. They're good in the red zone. It's if your only hope is, I think, hoping Taylen Green makes mistakes or outscoring. That's the other part there. But again, if Arkansas is able to get that run game going, it's probably going to be a long day for the Bulldog defense. I know this is a much better State defense than we've seen this year, but this is just a really, really good group in Fayetteville. It's not so good on the other side of the ball. Defensively, it's been pretty disastrous for Arkansas this year. In terms of total yards a game allowed, allowing 436 yards per game. Only SEC team that is giving up north of 6 yards per play at 6.3 per play. They're giving up, I think it's like 32 points a game allowed on the season. 32.8, so even go closer to 33. They're bad on third down. They're bad in the red zone. They're terrible against the run. They're bad against the pass, but really their rush defense has been truly atrocious. They do not get a lot of pass rush. They have one player in Quincy Rhodes who has 7 sacks on the season. But if you look at his game logs, 1 sack against Alabama A&M, 2 against Arkansas State, 2 against Memphis. He had 2 last week against Auburn. So in most of the games against good teams, he's not gotten a sack. Now, 2 against Auburn, okay. We know that Auburn has given up a lot of sacks on the season. So is Mississippi State, to be fair. So maybe Quincy Rhodes is someone you have to deal with for Mississippi State. Like, all right, that guy could be a little bit problematic for you. But other than that, they've not been a team that's been able to generate a lot of pass rush. They don't force a lot of turnovers. I think they only have 1 interception against a power conference team on the season. So in however many games they've played against P5 teams, that's P4, they've only picked off 1 pass. So if you're State offensively, there is no reason for this to not be the biggest day of the year. If you are Jeff Lebby and you really want people to get back on your side, which again, it's going to be tough to do if you don't win this game. It doesn't matter how it happens. Like, State fans at this point just want wins. But for Lebby, this needs to be, you go up to Fayetteville and you're talking 500 yards and 40-plus points on the board. It needs to be a huge day for the State offense if you're going to start to get some of that pressure off your back. You'll see if you get Fluff Bothwell back. He almost gave it a go against Texas and ultimately chose to sit it out. Think you can have him back against Arkansas. You want a big day out of him. Devon Booth has played admirably, but I think he's starting to wear down, and you want to have that 1-2 punch. Guys like Brennan Thompson, Anthony Evans need to be able to eat in this game. We're starting to see Aiden Williams emerge offensively. And Blake Shapen, for all the crap that he took 2 weeks ago, and for, frankly, the crap he's taken after the end of this last game, Blake Shapen played a good game against Texas. Blake Shapen is not why Mississippi State lost that game. And I can't even blame him for in the fourth quarter when things started to unravel. I think that was more, again, it was the situation around him than anything else. You need Shapen to be able to respond, though, as well and have another big game. This should be a game where the State offense eats.
And as I say, score at will. I mean, this should be a game where maybe you don't go and score like the first, like within 2 plays of a drive, but um, I don't know, man. It's like I feel like they should have a field day with Arkansas's defense. I really feel that way. I mean, is this the best against the worst necessarily in terms of State's offense against Arkansas's defense? Not really, but it's our offense is better than your defense, and we can show you why.
If you look at the game logs for Arkansas defensively on the year, you know,
Hmm.
Alabama A&M, Arkansas State, okay, whatever. Ole Miss, 475 yards, 6.8 yards per play. Memphis, 489 yards, 6.8 yards per play. Notre Dame,
Hmm.
641 yards, 8.9 per play. 485 on 7.5 per play for Tennessee. 497 for 7.4 per play for Texas A&M. And then Auburn, 380 yards, 5.4 per play. Which you see, Auburn, for as poor as they've been offensively, that falls off quite a bit. But I mean, for Auburn, I mean, what their offense has been so awful this year, that was probably a good day for them. Yeah, that was Auburn's best offensive performance since playing Ball State. That was Auburn's best offensive game since playing Ball State. And Auburn also ran for 230 yards in that game. Arkansas has
Yeah.
given up over 200 rush yards every game since Memphis. Last time they held a team under 200, they held Ole Miss to 118. Like, that was weird. Like, Ole Miss, for as big of a day as they had in that game, couldn't run the football. That was also Ole Miss. One, I think part of it was Arkansas, Trinidad Chambliss checking in for the first time. We're going to not let this guy who's a dual threat quarterback run the ball. We're going to force him to have to beat us with his arm. And as we've since found out, Trinidad can beat you with his arm. So they had a big day throwing. Two, Ole Miss for early in the year, offensive line was sort of having some problems. They've figured a lot of that out. They're run blocking a lot better now and have got their run game going. I think if they played again, it would be a much bigger day. Like, State's backs should eat. They should run the ball at will in this game, and then you should be able to hit the big passing plays down the field. I really don't see how State offensively doesn't have a big day. And if they don't, that's going to be a big problem. But you got to respond. Obviously, you got to bounce back from everything that happened from this past week. A week where, for as much as it was poor as it was, State put 38 on the board against a Texas defense that's been really good this year. Like, Texas defensively has been a good team. And it was a good day for the State offense. Like, if you're going to take a positive from that game, it's offensively, we played really well. We have to build off of it. This is a massive defining game for Jeff Lebby in this program. If you want any hope at going to a bowl, it's got to be you get the win here. And at this point, again, everybody knows, if you were here at the beginning of the show, where I sit on where this team is at. I have a hard time believing they're going to be able to find a way to get to 6 wins. I have a hard time believing they're going to find an SEC win, because until they show me they can do it, I'm not going to have faith into being able to do it. And I don't love the matchup. You're going on the road off a crushing performance. And for everything that we can say about Arkansas, the offense is really good, and State's defense is passable. But a really good offense can beat them. So it's not going to be an easy matchup, but State has got to find a way in this one.
Yeah, I mean, it goes for Arkansas too. Like, I mean, they just need a win, period. But when you look at State, I mean, they need an SEC victory, man. They obviously, we've struggled. Um, we had the best start to the season. Then we hit conference play, and it's like whatever. We took the loss to Tennessee. We kept it close. Not everyone was like necessarily upset about it. Then you lost to Texas A&M the way you did. Then you lost a close one to Florida. Keep in mind, you got Billy Napier fired, and you didn't get him fired, but he got fired the day after he beat you. I mean, 3 of your 4 SEC games were close in one possession. I mean, 2 of them were 7-point games. The Florida game was a 2-point game, 23-21. So you've had your opportunities. Look, man, if you can't do Arkansas, uh, you just throw in the towel because you got Georgia next week, then you got Missouri, then you got Ole Miss. It would be great if you could get one of those teams too. I doubt it because they're all looking pretty good. But I mean, the time's now for Mississippi State to win an SEC game.
Which we've been saying now for multiple weeks. We said it against
Right.
Florida. I think we felt the same way against Texas, but this has kind of been the pivotal stretch of the season for State. Well, look, we talk about State's mentality coming in. What is Arkansas's mentality going to be? Because, they move on from Pittman after the Notre Dame loss. And you can kind of feel like the troops were rallied for Petrino. Losing 3-point games against Tennessee and Texas A&M, clearly they were which, I mean, look, they were close in some of their other losses as well. But they were clearly fighting really, really hard, trying to find a way to get those wins. And it felt like against Auburn, they're winning this ball game, right? They were favored against the Tigers, and they were up 21-10 over Auburn at home, rolling. And then they let Auburn come back after the quarterback change. Is the wind out of the sails for the Hogs to where, okay, they were doing all this to try and, win one for Bobby, trying to get things figured out, but you lose a game in that fashion, are you going to be done? And I know we just talked about that with Mississippi State. How are you going to get up for this game losing after the manner that you did? You do wonder slightly how much of a quit factor there is for Arkansas when look, for Mississippi State, they're still 4-4. Mississippi State, and I think the mentality, because the games have still been so close, so competitive. And this is me. I'm not trying to sunshine pump because Lord knows I'm the last person to do that. But if you're State and you want to be optimistic about the season, you can say, look, man, we've been so close. We can get this done. We can still find a way to go to a bowl game. If you're Arkansas, I don't think bowl was even realistic. But, if they had beaten Auburn, then they're thinking, okay, we can beat Mississippi State. We're at 4-5. LSU hasn't looked good. Texas can't score. And then, what does Missouri at the end of the year but get them at home? Maybe we can find a way to win a couple of those and go to a bowl. I think Arkansas could have kept fighting down the stretch. I wonder if Arkansas lays down. I don't think they will. I don't think State is going to get lucky enough for them to lay down. But maybe, as much as I don't like where this game falls on the schedule for State, could you argue that Arkansas, from a mentality standpoint, you catch them at the right time too? I don't know. That could be another big debate for this one. Any final thoughts from you?
Nah, just go win this game if you're Mississippi State, man. I mean, these are 2 struggling teams. One that's terrible in Arkansas, and one that, like I said, Mississippi State had the best start to the season they could have hoped for with Arizona State, Alcorn State. Who else did we play? Northern Illinois. I mean, it was a couple cupcakes in there, but we had a great start. Now we need an SEC victory, and this is your time to do it. So I say go get it done, and hopefully the cards favor the Bulldogs.
Hopefully so. We will get more into how State can find a way to get a win Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's when we will have our live show, which will also be a call-in show. Last week, we had our friend Finn get back a part of the action. Would love to hear from him again. Would love to hear from more of you who have been tuning in and been a part of the action. So that'll be a call-in show. Your chance to come in and give your thoughts. Tell me why we're right. Tell me why I'm big, fat, and wrong. Tell us why we're right about whatever. I'm getting yelled at on Twitter over the past couple of days. So if somebody wants to come, cuss me out, don't do that. We don't want to get in trouble on here, but you can come yell at me. I don't care. Or if you think we're being preaching the truth, we'll hear that as well. Prop us up a little bit. No, but come be a part of the action. If nothing else, tune in and hear us talk about how we think Mississippi State can get the win. As also, we'll make our picks for the week. That'll do it for us tonight. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. If you have not already, give us a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, turn that notification bell on so you do know when we do go live. Share the channel, share the stream, share all our content. We'd greatly appreciate it. As always, swing your sword. Hail State.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.